Okay, next up on our accessory list is the 12-inch swing away extension, and this will be useful for supporting the tailstock and swinging it out of the way when we're not using it. Let's open this up and get it installed. Now inside the packaging you're going to find the hardware bag and hinge assembly. We'll open this up and get it laid out. Now this extension will also be coated with the packing grease so it doesn't rust. We'll get this wiped off and ready to go. Now we've got all the pieces of the extension laid out here, and you'll see that we've got, first of all, the extension itself, and this is the latch bracket for the swing away extension and the hardware needed for this, and then we've got finally the hinge assembly right here, and then there's two small adjusters, and these are actually cams that will help to set the height of this extension when it's in the closed position. I've also got my tools laid out. We're going to need a Phillips screwdriver here, a number 17 wrench for the cams, and then a number 5 and a number 6 Allen wrench. Let's go through and pre-mount the latch assembly, and then we'll install the entire extension onto the lathe. And I'll make sure those are nice and secure. This is an adjustable latch, and we're going to start off with it in the factory position here. It's actually got a lock nut on it, so it should become pretty well preset. If we need to adjust it later, we'll do that with a wrench. And next on the front of the lathe is the other half of the latch. We'll go through and screw that into place. Alright, now that's in place. Let's get our hinge mounted on the back. Now before we install the extension here, let's go ahead and get these adjusters in. These will thread right into the end of the lathe right here. And I'll thread those on by thumb. And I'll get these things almost all the way snug down, but I'm going to leave them a little bit loose so that we can still actuate the cam adjuster. Back that off just a little bit. Okay, these are on there, but I can still adjust those with a wrench since they're not snug down. Let's go ahead and remove our pin. And this is the limit pin at the end of the bed that prevents the tailstock from over travel. And we're going to save this and install it right onto the extension. And back at the extension, we'll insert the limit pin. And then next we're going to install the hinge. Now this hinge actually has a few set screws in here, and what that will allow you to do is once the hinge is in place, it'll actually let you set the adjustment or preload on the hinge if needed. I'm going to install it and leave those flat right now, and if those need to be adjusted, we'll adjust those once it's on the lathe. Let's go ahead and run these bolts in. Snug these down. Now we're ready to carry this over to the lathe. I'll grab my bolts and preload those to make it easy. And we'll swing that out of the way, and let's go to the lathe. Now with our bolts preloaded, we're going to use these leveling pins in the end to help hold this extension in place and to support the weight as I tighten down the hinge. Run those in by hand, and then give these a little snug. We're going to check all these adjustments in just a moment here, but for the time being I want to get this secured on the lathe. Now we've got the extension mounted, and right now I'm going to check and just run my hand across the top of the bed here. And we're a little bit off right now. I can feel just a little bit of a lip. And these are where these little adjusters come into play. What we're going to do is we're going to rotate this adjuster up a little bit. And as the extension closes, it seats onto the pins, and that'll raise the bed up a little bit, and the latch will pull it in tight. Let me give this a little bit of an adjustment. And then once it's latched in place, that's pretty close. I'm going to make a few little fine adjustments, and then I'll tighten those adjusters down. Always remember that when you're checking the bed, do that with the latch tight, and that way you'll have accurate adjustments for when you're using the lathe. The other area to look at is just on the inboard side right here, and this one actually matches up perfect right here. My height adjustment is real close. I'm going to make a fine little adjustment, and that should take care of it. And then we'll show you how that tailstock can swing away. Now when securing these, you want to go through and hold it with a wrench so that they don't rotate or move. Lock that down, and I'll lock down the back one. Now as this comes forward, it locks right in. The latch will hold it in place, and this is perfectly smooth. It's ready for my tailstock. I'll slide the tailstock on down, loosen that up, slide it on down, and that's a smooth transition. And since I've got my pin in the end, I can bring this down. Now this does a few things for us. The first thing that it does is it gives us a little bit more travel here. I've got 12 inches of additional bed, so if I'm turning a longer spindle, I can do that. The other nice thing is if I'm doing some work like a bowl and I want to get the tailstock out of the way, I can simply unlatch it and swing it around, and this entire assembly will swing around to the back side of the lathe and get it out of my way. Now with the 12-inch extension on the lathe here, instead of having just 36 inches between centers, we've now got 48 inches between centers. And that's great for a lot of projects that are just a little bit longer than your standard pieces.